we're up.
Says live on YouTube.
Yep,
We're good?
looks like it.
All right, I think we're good to go. Rick, when you're ready to call us to order.
Okay, I'd like to call our virtual meeting to order. We acknowledge that the press and the public were duly notified in accordance with state law. First item of business is approval of minutes from the September meeting.
I would move that we approve it.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's approved. Next thing I'd like to do is make a motion to move item D2 to be our next item on order of business.
Okay.
I will second your motion.
Any discussion?
Let's do it.
Do it.
Do we have to vote on it?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we're going to do a recommendation on zoning ordinance amendment to allow sewer lift stations in residential districts. Doug, you want to start us
Yeah,
off?
I'm going to that section of the packet, but I'll just, for the sake of background, this has come about as a result of the Isle of Pasco Water and Sewer Commission entering into negotiations to buy the triangle at the corner of 7th Avenue and Palm Boulevard. That lot's been on the market for a while, and there have been several kind of stops and starts with it. But they identified it as being a potential site for a future lift station. And as you all will recall, part of their, I guess, due diligence in working with the city and determining what it would take to expand the public sewer system to cover the entire island, they hired Thomas and Hutton to do a conceptual master plan. Thomas and Hutton did that plan, and they came back and gave us conceptually what it would take. And one of the things that it took, in addition to the sewer lines, were these lift stations. And I think there were somewhere in the magnitude of 10 to 12 additional lift stations that they would need to construct throughout all of the residential districts. So having that in the back of their mind, they identified this site as being a potential option for one of these future lift stations.
Bruce, did you say 10 to 12 additional?
I think so. It's somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay, thank you.
I can get an actual number if that's it's several.
Do you know how many we have right now?
No, I don't.
Order of magnitude?
I would probably say 15, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it would kind of be my guess. So they enter into negotiations with the seller on that piece of property. They come to me in their due diligence to just ensure that they will be able to do what they want to do there if they were to buy it. When they come to me, I begin looking into the zoning code, and it becomes apparent that when the city, so to back up about 5 or 6 years ago, the item that was at their forefront at that time was the expansion of the wastewater treatment facility at Waterway and 41st. They approached the city, and explain, which is also, by the way, in the SR1 zoning district. So they had this issue of a wastewater treatment facility in the SR1 district, and they found themselves kind of like they are finding themselves today with a rub with the zoning code. So at that point, they engaged with the city, and this amendment was worked out. And in short, what that amendment did was it stipulated that if they had an acre of land if their lot was bigger than an acre and they could keep their coverage under a certain percentage, they could proceed with improvements at the staff level of approval. And that included any new wastewater facilities or pumps or, what have you. So there was a threshold established at an acre or higher. They could proceed at a staff level approval. But the size between a half acre and an acre, at that point, they could apply to the Board of Zoning Appeals for what's called a special exception. So it would be basically an extra layer of review that they would get on those smaller lots between an acre and a half acre. But the way that it's written, it basically gives no opportunity for them to do anything on a lot smaller than a half acre. So I explained that to them, and basically they explained back to me that if the code were to stay that way, it would not allow any future lift station. And without any future lift station, basically the work or the strategy of expanding the public sewer system would be at a standstill. They don't think they could expand the sewer system without these lift stations. So that's what prompted this amendment. And the amendment really, as it's written, would just allow them to do what I would classify as small scale facilities, that being 1,000 square feet or less in the residential districts. It would be allowed as a use of right for those small facilities. So in other words, there would be no public process. It would be much like somebody building a house. You come into my office, you would apply for a permit, and you would be granted that permit. Now, they obviously still are, as they are in all of their facilities, they have to face their neighbors. And I know that they do that as they can. But that would be really a squabble between, if there were a squabble to arise, that would be a squabble between them and their neighbors, and not involve the city. So that's where we are today. This amendment has been through the Public Works Committee of City Council. They recommended that council approve it. Because it's part of the zoning code, any amendment to the zoning code comes to the Planning Commission for a recommendation. So that's why it's on your agenda today. You all would give a recommendation, and then full council would consider it and take into account the Public Works Committee recommendation and the Planning Commission recommendation. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, or if anybody has any follow-up comments.
Yeah, I got a quick one, Douglas. When this was considered previously, and this was maybe an oversight or whatever, was the Planning Commission engaged at that time as well?
Yes. Yeah. Any amendment to the zoning code would always go through the Planning Commission.
So this has been around before through Douglas?
I think what Marty's referencing is the prior change in 2015 that created this half-acre threshold. Correct, Marty?
So
Yeah.
Douglas, do they have targeted areas for where they're going to put the other lift stations?
That was my question. Yeah.
Yes, so they, in their map that they distributed, Thomas and Hutton created, and you probably recall, they created, basically a plan, and they definitely caveated all over the place that these locations are merely kind of place markers to indicate a general vicinity in which, so on the map, yes, they show a dot on various parcels around the island. But they kept saying, that dot, please don't zero in on the location of that dot and say, well, that's next to my house, I don't support this, because that dot would go to wherever in the vicinity they could acquire land. probably it was identified as their biggest hurdle was acquiring the land for all of these pump stations.
Well, many of these stations are likely to be on property that's already has a structure on it, correct?
No,
There is enough vacant property that they could build 15 lift stations without buying homes and tearing them down.
well, they have, all of their other stations are on, what I would, well, I say all, I think pretty much all of them are on little postage stamp parcels that are either old rights of way. They're kind of just little odd pieces of land that they identified over the years. Some are actually subdivided off from a larger parcel. So they're kind of a mix of things, but I think they're generally just little postage stamp lots that they've been able to acquire over the years.
So hypothetically, they're in violation of the code.
Well, I think they would be legal non-conforming, which is not a violation, but they don't comply with the current minimum size of a half acre, that's for sure.
Douglas, is there a way to get it seems like, at least some of the feedback I got in the last 24 hours, I shared some of it with you, but it's a little bit of a surprise for some of the folks, especially the ones that might be living around the area. I live down this side of the island. Is there a way that we could work with the commission to get the plan together for all 10 or 12 of where these might be located and address this all at once? Because I think, this particular one seems to be getting a lot of negative feedback, to put it lightly. And it's just sort of, there's a little bit of a surprise factor. It seems like there's been, we're chunking out one site or one station as opposed to getting the grand plan out there and communicating it to the community so that, as contentious as it's likely to be, at least it's all out there. Everybody knows what's coming. And, knowing that we've got 15 and that we've got another 10 or 12 to get the whole sewer in place, I think is something that, from a communication standpoint, everybody kind of deserves to know all at once instead of one at a time. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is it's going to be like a whack-a-mole. There's going to be a piece of property comes up that might be for sale. All of a sudden, you find out you got a pump station next to you. I think that's going to be a tough road.
Well, especially at the cost of an entire piece of property. This is not a big lot to begin with, and the house that I shared with you is for somebody who's trying to buy that lot, and they couldn't come to an agreement to the terms of the lot cost. So the commission is not, I'm sure, getting a deal on this piece of land, but it's also going to negate the ability to ever put anything else on there but a park. And the location certainly is within setbacks. I don't know if they're allowed to do that, but it really renders, a part of the entry to the island from Sullivan's Island, which is a pretty prominent little spit of land. Maybe you can get a little architectural folly or something there in a park, but I think there needs to be a plan from water and sewer where they think they might need these lift stations, so it isn't haphazard. I think it would be better if they located them and you found that maybe they could purchase an easement right from a larger lot owner to deed off a portion of their property for this lift station than to take up an entire vacant lot that no one could really afford. I mean, these lots are $500,000 plus.
Ron, what about existing city property that might be a candidate for use? Is there, we've got city property all over the island. Is there some candidates that could be peeled off potentially for this kind of use, as opposed to mixing it into the heart of a residential community?
Yeah,
that just seems.
I kind of think of the post office lot, which is similar and much underutilized. Is kind of what I'm thinking. Now that's also private property with a lease to the post office, but if you had an easement on a small corner of that, would that not be more an effective use of space, since arguably that post office has a 50-year lease or maybe greater? So it's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, yet it sits on a large piece of property. Just a thought.
I think that's a good thought. I think that there's a number of places that are like that. I had a question. I was wondering, as a utility, they're considered a public utility. Do they have any right of way that they can even go ahead with this, even without our approval? Or does our zoning limit what they can do?
So let me just kind of bounce around a couple of questions that were posed to Scott. Scott, there is this conceptual plan that I made reference to that identifies all of the locations. They did, I would say they gave as much thought as they could to the placement of those. Some are in old strips of right of way. So they kind of placed them there with some intent, but again, they kept curbing that, that dot on the map by saying, don't take it as gospel that this is where it's going to be. We don't know that for certain. We can't fully know until we've negotiated out each and every one of these site locations. So to your point, there is a map out there, and it's, public.
But is the community aware of it, or do the neighbors know that they've got a dot next to their house? I'm just looking at it from a practicality standpoint. I guess that's highly unlikely.
I doubt that. No, I think to answer your question, the neighbors that have dots next to their houses,
They probably don't know.
probably don't know that. But at the same time, I don't know that because they've curbed the comments so much by saying we're going to go anywhere around this dot that we can possibly go. I don't know if it would be useful to tell those people that there's a dot on the lot next to them on a conceptual plan.
Yeah,
So
and all I'm suggesting is there a way we can work with if it's going to take another 10 or 12 stations, then it's going to take another 10 or 12 stations. But is there a better way to do this that can communicate, maybe allocate some city property or get them to a less impacting area as opposed to having these one-offs just show up where we've got an opportunity for land, they're going to plant a pump station, and all of a sudden it's upsetting the residential apple cart pretty severely. Not to mention the odor that comes along with it.
Seems like wherever you put, they're gonna upset whoever's house it's next to. And we're really only talking about changing the ordinance to allow this. We're not really talking about where they're gonna be located.
Right.
But the way the ordinance is written, it just says that it's allowed within a residential area. That one liner, that leaves it, doesn't that leave it wide open? It's a wide open field.
Put it anywhere. Right.
The other thing, a lift station is a abstract term. It's not a defined term. I think there ought to be some specifications around what this lift station looks like or does or how it performs, rather than allowing that, saying, okay, you can put whatever you're going to design, you can put in the ground here. If you look at 29th Street station, in my opinion, it's not performing. It's really bad news when you go by it. And I think, there's no guarantees. There should be some sort of standard for this lift station that kind of, with somebody responsible for its performance.
I spoke to it, just to follow on with what Rick was saying. I spoke to a professional engineer this morning just about lift stations, and in his comments were that what you have to keep in mind is exactly what Rick's saying. What is included in that? He said that for the most part, he's seen that the pumps and equipment are below ground. What's above ground is usually a generator and some other equipment. He said the generators tend to cycle off and on at different times. You have to be careful in a residential area. And then I asked him about the smell and odors. He said, well, typically they'll try to vent them so that they're away from houses and away from the residential area. But in a case like this, I don't know, it's fairly open air. Maybe it won't be a problem, but it's something to consider when if we do change it, the zoning and open that up, that, they can place these just about anywhere. So that would make me nervous to do that. Without a plan, and even if, like you said, Douglas, if they're showing a dot, well, if that dot is the best place for that pump station or lift station to be, then that needs to be it, needs to be addressed. And whether we deed some land away from something else, so be it. But I just think we need to be real careful with this.
Yeah, the other thing, just as a homeowner, they're going to tie up $500,000 for a long, long time, because it's going to be a long, long time before we actually start doing this to the island.
Yeah.
And I'm puzzled by that, that they're so willing to do that kind of thing, given that they have a big investment going on now, expanding the existing plant. It just amazes me that they're willing to tuck away, $500,000-$600,000 for maybe 15 years.
But Rick, they are following Thomas and Hutton's proposal. I mean, that was part of their plan, was to begin acquiring this property. That was one of the first things they needed to do.
I know, but still, Bill, you look at the timing. I mean, it's.
I hear you.
How do we account for
if we
the
ever want to
impact
have
of
the
that?
whole sewer, the whole island sewered, we've got to stop throwing up roadblocks to the Water and Sewer Commission to do that.
Yeah, I think I would take it one step further to say, we have been in conversations with them for whatever it is, 5 or 6 years about getting on with this. And we have pushed them for cooperation. You tell us what you need to do. You tell us what we need to do. We want this done. We want this done. This is kind of the very first building block that allows them to do what's already been done. I don't know, 15, we can quantify it if it's important, but let's say there's 15 existing stations. They're telling us we need to do 12 more. And our first reaction is, no, you can't do that.
Douglas, I'll have to sorry to interrupt you. I would disagree with that. I don't think we're saying don't do it. I think we're all acknowledging that if to do the sewer, it's got to get done. I think we're saying the way this is being done, there might be a way to put the plan in place collectively with them, get it communicated. Look at the residents that are going to be around this potential, pump station. They have no idea it's coming. And all of a sudden their property values are impacted. Some of those houses were just recently purchased. And the only reason I'm, communicating this because I live down at this end of the island, but I think for this to be when something comes up, they're going to buy it and plop it in a residential area. I think the residents that are in that area deserve a right to be able to know what the impact is. If there's a way that we can come up with a plan for those 10 or 12 and help them, get it communicated and get that in place and locked down, wouldn't that be a better way? So everybody knows up front what's coming in their neighborhoods.
Douglas.
I mean, just to, let's hypothetically walk that idea down the road a bit. What space? So I think they need, I'm just going to say they need, let's say they need 3 more on that end of the island. They need this one plus 3 more. Are there there are no spaces down there that are not adjacent to something that I'm aware of. I can't think of unutilized space that's not near somebody's home. And that goes for pretty much the entire island. So I think that I understand what you're saying, Scott, but if you were to use the threshold of we can't put it where people aren't already aware that it's coming, then you're shot the entire area or the entire island out of the.
Well, I don't know. I think there are less visible, less impacting places that might not take up a highly visible entire lot for that space. And by the way, I'm all for trying to figure out a way to do this with the sewer commission. I don't think anybody's trying to throw up a roadblock. I just think that without us knowing what all the options are, whether it's city property, whether it's county property, whether it's on one side of the street, the other side of the street, tucked away in somebody's backyard that might want to be interested in selling an easement that's a better location, that's less obtrusive. I think it's just this piece of lot came up, they're buying it, and that's where they're going to plop it. I don't think that's planning. I think we're in a reaction mode because of that.
Hey, Douglas.
And for us to change the entire ordinance and say, you know what, all you have is this baseline requirement, and you can plop it where the next piece of property comes available, and you're, near a house near you, I think is not responsible on our part.
What would be the timeline, the expected timeline on this if we were to get this amendment done, and just thinking what Scott's saying, if we're going to make an effort to try to get in front of it and create a dialogue and some cooperative discussions here, what would be the expected timeline
The
for the
pump
planning
station
commission?
will not be built in your lifetime.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
Very unlikely.
Yeah, we don't know that, but also, Douglas, do we have to change the zoning code? Can we not just keep doing it as a special exemption from the code? I know it would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, but can we not continue to handle it that way?
Well, so right now, the way it's written, it has to be at least a half acre for the Board of Zoning Appeals to even consider it. So you could take away that threshold and say, you know, a lot of any size could have a sewer facility if they got a special exception through BOZA. But right now, there's a size limit to even get through the gates to go to BOZA at a half acre. So Marty, back to your question. I do know that on this particular piece of property, they have a real estate deal that's hinging. But I don't know that should be any impetus to go any quicker with a recommendation. You do, though, I guess, run the risk of, legally, it's a council decision. I mean, what you all would be doing would be giving them a recommendation. And I don't think that the Planning Commission could just kind of fail to give a recommendation and that be taken as holding the process up. So I think, once you're given the opportunity for a recommendation, if you fail to do so, or if you do, if you recommend against it, that would not keep the council from being able to amend it on their own if they chose to. I don't know that they've ever done that. I think they would, in my opinion, if the Planning Commission were to say, hey, give us a month, 2 months to do some analysis and come up with suggestions, in my mind, everybody would be happy to do that. But I'm just kind of saying factual.
No, that's what I was getting at, so that helps.
And Marty and Douglas, can we all agree that we're trying to
this be done? What was there some different conversation at Public Works than what we're having here that convinced them that we should do this?
I think Public Works, I think it was seen as just the first, the very basic roadblock to them expanding sewer as we've told them we wanted them to do for all these years. That was my impression of their reaction, is this is just getting out of the starting blocks.
Well, can we agree that
water and sewer is probably a little cautious about specifically identifying where they want these pump stations? Because if they do that, whoever those property owners are going to expect maybe a premium for the price of it. I would be cautious if I was trying to expand a business and identifying specifically where I wanted to build, because then I know the pricing is going to be different. I just don't know if they're going to want to be that specific with us.
Yeah, but if, the one thing, if you can't, the little dots, if you can't fill in all the little dots, then you can't go forward.
Exactly.
Right. But knowing how far apart those dots have to be, not far from this particular piece of property might be the Exchange Club. I pick on them because that's a commercial, operation, not a residential, where they could perhaps deed out a portion of their parking area for this lift station to occur and be less impactful to, while they do have some neighbors. But even up and down that stretch of Palm Boulevard on the marsh side, there are pieces of land that bulge out from the street that might be able to support the area required for a pump station and yet not have any neighboring homes around it for the impact of noise or smell. And those might be very, very small lots. This property is 0.2 of an acre, so it's not even like half of our requirement. But if it was 0.05 of an acre and worked, isolated, and I'd be fine with that. So it's not really, from standpoint of ordinance and lot size, that's not really the issue as much as where they're deciding to place them. And we're kind of letting them make that call. Like I said, they have to do the math on that, but there are some great implications, and it would seem before I spent $500,000 or so on that lot that I'd want to know if I'm going to get those other 11 spaces that I need on the island to be able to do any of this.
Right.
Well, so if we have time to respond on this and we've got time to think about it, then what's the harm in going back to them just saying, hey, look, there's some initial negative feedback and we want to look at this in a little more depth if you guys are amenable to it.
A little more holistically, because this is really kind of like this.
Do we
annotation,
do we know if they have an option on the property that it would expire?
I think that is the case, Bill. But to me, I think the parcel's been on the market for 2 years, 3 years. So I wouldn't, personally, I don't know that it warrants rushing because of this existing contract.
Last thing, I just want to jump in and say, I don't think the message is that we're trying to slow these guys down or stop them or keep them or preventing them from doing something. I think we're trying to figure out a way to do it better with less impact, isn't it? Isn't that really what we're trying to do? We'd like to help them, not stop them.
Well, yeah, and even if the result is the same, people are going to feel a lot better about it, having known that it's been vetted.
But and at least there's a plan, rather than, oh, hey, a lot came up for sale, let's go buy it, put a pump station on it.
So I don't know that I'm clear about what's being discussed in terms of analysis. Are we suggesting that we push them to firm up the dots on their map? Because I don't think that's realistic. I mean, they've told us, that their only way of firming up those maps is going to be as things become available through, just through land coming available.
How hard would it be, Douglas, to have, say, Chris or somebody come over, tell us what the plan is, firm up that we've got the 15, tell us he needs 10 or 12, kind of point them out where generally on a map where they might be, and then just have the city work with the sewer commission to try to figure out the best location for these places and then try to encumber them or at least do something with them. But that keeps it from just a wait till something comes up and plop one down. There may be, if we can get to 1,000 square foot footprint, if that's what's required, instead of having a half acre or more, that might open up a whole range of other options like Ron was talking about.
So Scott, your first part of your question was how many more do we need? Look at the plan that they already have. Those things could be done, tomorrow, but,
Sure.
But you kind of pivoted into firming up the locations of the dots, which I don't think they can do or will do, or to Bill's point, they would want to do. So that, if you were satisfied with those first three kind of points, I think that could be done very quickly and easily. But if the objective would be to start, whatever we would need, I heard the term firming up the location of those dots.
Well, yeah, let me rephrase that. I think this gets back to, they're probably located their dots based on the requirements that are on the books right now. And I'm going to defer to the engineers with the background here. If they know what their requirements are and where their optimal locations are, and if they all of a sudden had options to place them in other places, can't we work with them to maybe provide them with some optional locations that may be less impacting to the residences? I guess it gets to Vince, you saying, about putting a plan together. Have we been able to explore options with them on their placements if they had other, we know what the requirements of the station are. We know what the footprint is, but that's probably been overlaid on the half acre requirement. If that were to change, or if there were other requirements, could we find some more optimal locations that don't impact the residences as much?
Well,
Or did
to
I
me,
ask you any questions?
that's the hard engineer. I mean, that's really their engineering conundrum. Where do these things go? That's what they're studying, and that's why they've identified this lot. I can't think that there were obvious, cheaper, easier locations than this one, and they just wanted to get this one.
Well, okay, I'm going to use hypothetical to Ron's example. If instead of having to plop down $500,000 plus on that lot, if they had a place down along Palm Boulevard that abutted out, there was 1,000 square foot footprint that wasn't within earshot or no shot of another house, could they place one there? Do we even know the answer to that question? If it were available to them or made available to them?
I just don't know what site. Well, so first of all, it would have to be more than, without this change, as the code sits, it would have to be more than a half acre. So we're back to that. So even Ron's example of the Exchange Club, I think that's probably less than a half acre. So,
I'm not suggesting put it on the Exchange Club parking lot. I'm not sure that would
That was just a, pick on business type thing as opposed to the residents. But I think what we'd have to do is really just, for us to be able to give them the most freedom, you almost have to take away the minimum size requirement altogether.
Right.
Which I'd be fine with if there was a plan, instead of just saying, have that. Because I think they do need opportunities to expand in the case that they expand. You just hope and pray that they're going to be doing it thoughtfully, and I'm just not sure. This is more of an opportunistic location than it is, a thought out, I'm sure, type thing. Or my presumption is that.
Well, in order to move this forward, I'm going to move that we make a recommendation to council that they approve the change in the ordinance. At least we can get this to a vote.
As
It would need a second. Pardon me?
As it's written right now?
As it is written. We can vote it down, but at least we'll have a chance to vote on it.
Well,
Trying to get to my damn mouse. How's the ordinance written right now? Or the proposed ordinance?
But you need a second in order to keep moving with your conversation.
And I'm not hearing a second.
I have a comment. This is Desiree, if I may, Chair.
Go ahead.
The updated sewer master plan that was developed and presented by Thomas and Hutton several years ago includes some proposed pump station areas. It just includes the vicinity of where these pump stations may be located. They did not specify the exact location, but they just, created a sort of a diameter area that shows where one would be. That may be a place for you all to start evaluating these. But that master plan did identify where this proposed pump stations would be located. And I'm gonna see if I can, I have it pulled up in my computer. I may, if you all want, I can pull it up, but I don't think I'm able to share my screen.
Desiree, do you know if the Triangle property was included in that?
It is included in that vicinity.
Okay.
Yeah, Desiree, I don't know. I'm not sure well, I guess I'll show. Is that going to show the ones that are vacant right now?
I wish, Douglas, can you enable me to share my screen? For some reason, I'm not able to. When I try to do it, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Says one. Try that.
Let me see. All right, I can do it now. Okay. Share. Let me know if you're seeing my screen. Can you see my screen?
No,
Not yet.
Not yet.
It says you've started screen sharing, but it doesn't show your screen. View. I can probably, so do you all want to get, we've talked about this master plan and the dots on it. I'm gauging there's an interest in looking at that, which I can certainly distribute to you. And we can certainly do what Scott, oh, there it is, Desiree.
There it is. Got it.
Okay, see this blue circle right here? That is depicting a proposed pump station vicinity. See how the triangle lot is right there?
Yep.
And there's another one around the end of the connector, City Hall area up here. So this document includes all of the areas along the island where they've identified pump stations would need to be located to expand sewer.
Desiree, how many are there?
Yeah, we were talking about these dots earlier, Desiree, and the number. Can you count them up?
Yeah, so I'm right here. Look at this large map. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
You were pretty good, Douglas.
You were on point.
Does it loosely define the impacts of those pump stations in that master plan?
So Marty, do you see how the map is broken into basins, those red lines?
Mm-hmm.
That is basically the collection pump within each of those basins, those sewer basins. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's as it was explained to me, that each one of those areas divided up with the red lines needed that pump.
Douglas, are those 16 new, or Desiree, are those the 16 new, or have some of those been put in place in the last 5 years?
No, those 16 are new.
Those would be new. Proposed pump station. The existing pump stations are depicted by this purple. I see it as purple dot.
So
How many lift stations are in Wild Dunes, just as a comparison?
So to get to the lift station counting exercise, each of those existing basins will have one in it typically. So 25 has one, and you can see the purple dot.
Yep.
24 has one, you can see the purple dot. 26 has one, but I do not think that they gave us the Wild Dunes system, because it's basically done, and all of this effort was.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking from an impactful standpoint. I drive through Wild Dunes frequently, and I've not really noticed too many pump stations. I noticed the one on 29 and Waterway. That's really about the only one I've ever really noticed outside the gate. Of course, we went to one at the Forest Trails facility, or some. I think it was there.
Oh, actually, they did there's one in Wild Dunes there.
Yeah, there's several. I can see here and 4 in this sheet.
Yeah.
This is helpful because it does show us at least that there is a plan for this, and that is in an area where they're now seeing an opportunity to purchase the land. But I'm still reluctant of even recommending that we kind of open it up and say that, yes, you can go ahead with it, without some more thoughtful discussion. It concerns me on a number of reasons, and one being the visible spot of it. It's right on Palm Boulevard. And then secondly, it being in such a residential area, that's a big concern too. But, I understand progress has to happen. And maybe there's a balance that we can work with them on something like this, if they can make some assurances of the size of it. Will they screen it with vegetation? There's a lot of other things they can do.
It could be that there's pump stations now that have developed, have gotten better, or new technology. They're smaller and the typical technology track. But we need to talk to them about that.
Yeah, and to Vince's point before, most of the pump station is underground. You've got the generator and whatever other ancillary thing above ground. And, you know, and yes, I'm sure things have gotten better.
Well,
Yeah,
you look at 29th Street. I hope they've gotten better than 29th Street.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's talk about that for a sec. If 29th Street is the example, and again, I'll share my personal experience there, is I run along Waterway a couple times a week and literally have to go across the road because of the odor. Is that the kind of pump station that first of all, is there any way to mitigate those kinds of issues? I can't imagine what it's like being around it, living there. Secondly, if this is what we're going to put in that residential area, I think that's part of the big concern, because people are visualizing and assuming that what's on that current pump station is going to be coming to their front yard.
So, Scott, they have indicated that this pump station, that the one at 29th is a little larger than what they need at 7th, and they've also indicated that they would be more than willing to put, fencing around it and obscure it a little bit more like the ones on Ocean Boulevard, with just a wooden privacy fence around it. But having said that, and I guess I wanted the group to continue to really think about it beyond just 7th Avenue, which you're doing, because whatever you do, it will be replicated and applied to these other 15 or so sites. So I'd hate to get too much tunnel vision on that one request and think about it more globally in terms of, so, I guess that's the reason on including the photograph in your packet of the one at 20.
And by the same token, it's dangerous to go ahead and just do a blanket, let it rip everywhere on the island. I mean, You're talking one item here, and maybe an exemption for that one item would be the way to go, rather than just, casually saying, wherever you want to go on the island, you can do it.
Well, I don't know. I don't see an easy path forward so as I see it, if you look at each one of those basins, there aren't a lot of options within each one of those basins. And, I think that they're going to have trouble enough already acquiring 16 postage stamps of land without additional hurdles being put in front of them about, whatever, you have to be X number of feet away from the home or something of that magnitude.
So Douglas, is there a drawing or a schematic or anything that would show what exactly would be going on that lot? Is that something that is too much to ask with all of the landscape around it? That's kind of the commitment or in any of their examples, or maybe I missed it. And if it's the picture of 27th, is that where you're?
In the email, giving a little background to this, there was some site plans there that showed generally, and I can probably put that up on this screen, but again, I'd hate for you to get too focused on that one. So how about this? How about for a suggestion of moving forward? It sounds like there's some very easy information we can pull together. It sounds like you all have an interest in looking at that plan and quantifying how many are already on the island, how many additionally we need, and then generally looking at that plan. Scott, I think you kind of started with that of just, how many people are aware that they're in that circle.
In the zone.
In the zone. So, and I do think that we could, what I guess I am hearing that may make it more palatable is talk to the Water and Sewer Commission about establishing a standard that would mitigate the most offensive portions of these things, you know?
Yep.
Is there something you could, that basically we could put into this requirement that would say, require odor control device at the onset? Could we require an 8-foot tall privacy fence at the onset? Could we, so maybe we do a process and working with the Water and Sewer Commission to develop some, what I would call performance standards or mitigation standards.
Yeah.
That
It's
would,
a great idea. Yeah.
that would
Perfect.
just, I don't know, you know, if they tell me, if we put in the code, they have to have odor control devices. I don't know, you know, when it comes to specifying what that really is, I think the city would be in a hard place to kind of try to administer that. If they put something on top of it and they said, yeah, Douglas, that's the odor control device, quite honestly, I'm going to be at their mercy to believe them. That,
Yeah, but the odor control device is going to be sold to them by somebody who's going to do a specification and a guarantee.
well, but you start getting into, you know, we've all been down this road of that has an odor control device, but I can sure still smell it. And he said, well,
They put one on, they put one on 29th Street recently, and to me, there's no change.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of my point. That we could go, you know, we could start creating and including mitigating controls. But I guess I, to some degree, think that they have to do that. They have to manage this thing themselves. I mean, they need to be held accountable. I don't know that it does any good if they are doing something harmful to their neighbor for us to be in the middle of that.
Right.
Douglas, is that a pump station at the end of 9th and Ocean? Do you know, by any chance, we're at the end of our street? It's behind a fence, green fence.
Yeah, there are a series of them down Ocean Boulevard that are behind just privacy fences.
Yeah, it's literally, you know, it's probably a 2-second walk from our house. We don't even notice it. For whatever reason, we don't notice that one. It's not,
And that's the first thing I wanted to do is go by Ocean Boulevard and see how those pump stations look, because that's not a heavily landscaped, you know, part of the island in terms of mature oak trees, say, for instance. But my curiosity also is where did they find the land to put those pump stations? Were they carved out prior to a sale of property, or did they in fact get an easement?
I don't think it's a half acre, even
Yeah,
close.
they're not half acres, for sure.
Yeah, so yes, Ron, they were done as part of the original development
They
of
were.
the side of,
Ocean Boulevard, yeah.
of Ocean Boulevard is when those were created. They are not a half acre, and the
Right.
half acre came about obviously after all of those were created.
Do we know how big they are? Are they about 1,000 square feet?
Yeah, they're about 1,000 square feet, which
Yeah.
is what they're kind of saying, you know, and they may be able to live with, I don't know, 700 or 800, but I think they're
Oh,
kind
I
of
mean,
20 by 30, 30
Right.
by 40, something like that.
mhm.
And it just kind of begs the question, how come that one's so unobtrusive and no odor, and we got another one that's not so much?
Yeah, I can't answer that. They certainly can.
Because it's Rick's.
Thank you.
Sure.
So if we wanted to give this more thought, I am looking at the code, and you all have 30 days from the date that you get something to make a recommendation. You can either recommend against it at this point with the caveat that you're willing to study it further if time allowed, or you could try to establish a special meeting within 30 days. You could,
Well, is it possible to accept the recommendation with the caveats of what you were recommending about a plan for screening and et cetera? Douglas, is that a doable thing?
I think you all would need to see that plan before you recommend it.
Sure.
Yep. I think the thing might be to vote against it unless unless somebody comes up with a plan to show us and what the specifications for the equipment would be. And what, a little bit of the design basis.
I mean, I'd have a hard time voting for it the way it is now, but I also don't want to send the message that we don't want to find a solution for the commission and for the sewer either. I think we're just saying that as it is right now, there's just too much
enough data
open to chance. So I don't know how do you best work around that? Do we have to vote against this? And then, go ahead.
Pending further study on aesthetic conditions and.
That's exactly right. Because if we vote for it, I mean, then what you're saying, Douglas, opens the whole plan up that they are be allowed to, at will, kind of place where they need to.
Yeah, I don't think we'd be making a fully informed decision at this point from everything that I've heard, and I think it certainly warrants some more discussion.
Why do you want to
whoever makes the motion, your motion has to be in the positive. So it has to be a motion to approve and then seconded. And then you guys vote how you're going to vote. So if it's all against it or it's the majority against it, whatever it is, but the motion has to be positive. And then Douglas can take your recommendations to have X, Y, and Z presented to you before your next meeting. Does that sound right, Douglas?
They have certainly recommended that ordinances not be enacted. So I don't know if that's, maybe that's.
Motions are supposed to be in the positive.
So Nicole, let's vote in favor of, and then we can shoot it down, and then we can, but with the recommendation that, hey, we're open to change it and whatever.
Okay, so Mr. Mills, you made a motion.
Vote for it. Who wants to vote for it?
So Mr. Mills, you made a motion a while back that was in the positive. If you'd like to restate a motion in the positive, I'd need a second to move forward and call a vote.
I didn't get a second for that motion, though.
No, sir. So I didn't know if you wanted to restate it or somebody else wants to.
I do
Before
not.
you go through this, is there an interest? To me, it's cleanest. Well, maybe not cleanest, but maybe it is in the spirit. It is more in the spirit of trying to work things out to have a special meeting with the Water and Sewer Commission. Just basically commit to that now.
Yeah.
We'll have an additional meeting. We'll try to come up with some mitigating controls to put into this ordinance and then move it forward at that time. You do have a 30-day window to make a motion. So to me, that's the better.
So we could just table the discussion?
Yes.
I'm on board with that.
I'll go back. That's not right. We have to make a motion first, right?
Well, no one ever seconded his original motion. So it was the way I interpret that is that the motion failed.
It died for lack of a second.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I will now make a new motion that we table the discussion until we have an opportunity to meet with the Water and Sewer Commission.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? How's that?
All right, so just so the group is, so I'm clear, we're going to set a meeting. We are going to, I'm going to distribute that master plan so that all of you can study the dots where they
Desiree
are.
sent that to us.
What's that?
We have it.
Desiree sent that.
He just sent it.
Oh, okay, okay. And we're gonna basically ask that the Water and Sewer Commission come prepared to talk about, because it's their world, not ours, what they see done to mitigate the effects of those things. Because I'm gonna be a little bit at a loss in terms of what they can, what options are out there to mitigate. So is there anything else that we're missing that we're gonna do between now and setting that meeting? Okay, good, I've got it.
Okay. Shall we move on to the comprehensive plan?
right, so this is community facilities, and I think this is one that we kind of earmarked in our very first pass at meeting potentially some of the most work. And we can go, historically we've started with the goals. I don't know if we want to follow that, going through the goals and the strategies, or if we want to just talk generally about the entire section at this time. I do, just my personal kind of summary, there's a lot of just fact updating that I think we would be done to the public safety departments, the police, fire, about their, we get into their number of employees, their equipment. There's a lot of facts in there about wastewater treatment. There's a lot of information in there about stormwater. Where obviously, a lot has been done on the island, and a lot is planned in terms of stormwater that just needs to be updated. And then I know that there's been interest in the public property section dealing with the marina. It gets into a great deal of detail about when bonds are satisfied and that type of information that clearly needs to be updated. So I think there's a lot in there, obviously, that hits at a lot of what the city has been doing day in and day out since this draft is done. So again, I don't know if you want to go generally talking about it, or if you want to start with the strategies, or what the will of the group is in terms of how to review it. Scott or Rick, you got opinion?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Scott, what do you think?
Well, we can start at the top and just go through the goals again, strategies and goals, and see if they're applicable and are not applicable, maybe tune those up. And then I think, Douglas, you've been through this before. Holistically, are there major sections that you think that we should be focused on more than any of the others? And I guess thirdly, we're tabling the narrative edits for a little later.
Yeah, I think we talk generally about the big ticket items, what we think it's weak on. Personally, I think it's weak on the stormwater. There's a lot going on currently with stormwater, and I think it's weak on wastewater. A lot has happened on wastewater. All of this, expansions of sewer discussions that we've had. So to me, those two sections it's weak on. And then there's a lot of just what I would consider updating. And I think we also need to kind of focus in on the discussion of the marina. A lot has happened with the referendum. We received comments. I hope all of you got comments from a neighbor there about the marina sections, among other sections.
Do we want to go back to continuation on that grid format? So it's sort of the cadence we can go through. Hey, is it still applicable? Is it funded? Is it in good shape, decent shape, or we need to revisit? Do you want to pop the grid back up and start at the top, Douglas, or?
Let me pull it up.
Okay.
That sounds
It's
good,
so
everybody?
far.
And I'll take edits as I can. Somebody else might. I'm gonna probably have to drop around 4:30, but somebody else maybe can pick it up.
Hold on, man. I tell you what, while I'm pulling this up, let's just start with the first goal, goal 5.1, improve public safety. And while we're talking about that, I will I'll get it pulled up. I'm having cloud issues currently, but
Okay.
OneDrive is not behaving.
Okay, so yeah, the first goal was 5.1, improve public safety. The first strategy, the city should continue to work with county officials to ensure optimum EMS services on the island and maintain basic medical emergency.
Hey, Marty, you want to do a backup on Scott? So when Scott bows out, you can take over.
Sure. Did we send out a new matrix? Sorry, or is this, Scott, or are you just working off of the PDF?
No, I'm working, I don't know if the last one got sent out. Let me,
I didn't get it. Yeah.
I didn't
I can just draft it as we go, but if that
no,
was.
let me just send everybody the matrix. I'll just,
Okay. I have a record of what we did in the first two review meetings, but not in the most recent one.
I'll just save it as today and send it out.
But sure, Rick, I certainly don't mind.
Appreciate it. Thought it was in the package.
No, it was.
No,
No, it wasn't.
was not.
Give me 2 minutes here.
So do we have a hard stop at 5 for the recording purposes, or
No.
we don't? Okay.
Okay, last one's coming right now.
Got it.
So Marty, it should open right up on that comm facilities tabs. And I've just been editing the wording as we're capturing it and then putting the yes, no, green, red, yellow.
Yep.
You
Looks
got
good.
it?
Yes.
You want to drive today?
Sure. All right. So 5.1, improve public safety strategy. 5.1.1, the city should continue to work with the county officials to ensure optimum EMS services on the island and maintain basic medical emergency.
Services through the fire department.
Oh, yep. Thank you.
Can you share your screen, Marty? Or?
Maybe not. Hold on.
Yeah, it says that I can.
Okay. More. I think I'm about to be able to.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Oh.
Get it,
Yep.
Morty?
Good. Very good.
Okay, so the first question when we evaluate is, does this support the vision?
Yes.
Yes.
And how do we rate the existing performance?
You're going to have to hit the enable editing up the top there.
Oh,
There you go.
May not let you share it while you're. Did it go off of everybody else's screen?
It did.
Morty, if you're
Here we go.
okay, does it let you do it as you go?
I don't know. I was just checking the settings there.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's showing up.
Yeah, I think you're good.
All right. So does anybody have a strong opinion on this one in terms of our rating criteria here and the measure of success?
I personally, I feel like we're in good shape. I don't, it's a little bit out of my world. But I generally feel like I would hear about it if it wasn't up to snuff.
It sounds like it's a strength of the community.
Yeah.
Put it as a green.
Yeah, I would say green.
Yep.
I just copy and paste the top color and it's really easy. Yeah. There you go.
So what do we have that's tangible to back this one up? Or how do we measure the success of the EMS services?
So, I always hear about comparing our response times with kind of average county response times. I think that's generally the EMS world. I think that's kind of how they operate, is if you get to a point where the response times are out of their norms, that's when they start looking at changing things up. So maybe a measure of success is to continue to maintain county or EMS response times that are deemed safe by emergency services personnel.
Or could we say EMS services and fire department? Response times.
Well, so I think, this strategy is specifically dealing with EMS services, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were dealing with both.
No, it says basic medical emergency services through the fire department as well.
Well, it's saying, yeah, I guess working. The
Because
fire
of our
department
EMTs.
working with county officials to ensure their services.
Yep.
I think that's as far as I know, it's funded through the county and the city budgets annually.
Should we say that exceed or beat averages?
We could. We want to be above average. We don't want to satisfy. I think that's a Y. I don't have any additional notes or updates.
All right. Any other thoughts or discussion on 5.1.1?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, 5.1.2 for the goal of improved public safety is develop and implement a method of distribution for the disaster preparedness plan.
I'm at a little bit of a loss for that one, quite honestly. I'm guessing that there was a lot of focus on that plan during this update. We look at that internally, but I'm unaware. You all as planning commissioners, have you all ever been aware of a distribution of that disaster preparedness plan?
Nope.
No.
I almost think of that as an internal plan.
Is that something that's on the city's website though, or can we access
it? It is a public plan.
Okay.
Anybody can look at it. I'm just unaware of a real effort to distribute it.
I think it is on the website.
Yeah, it is. It's if you hunt around for it, you'll definitely find it. But I'm unaware of us ever.
distributing it?
Yeah, kind of widely distributing it.
Well, isn't that one way of distributing it though?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I think
that should be enough.
Yep.
Maybe.
Oh, is that one that's complete and it's done and it's green then?
yeah.
Yeah, it's on the websites, the disaster preparedness plan. So that is an effective distribution method as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I was reading it as though the authors, which was probably me at the time, I just don't remember, felt like it was important to get it out to the public. And I just don't think the public gets it. But I guess to your point, if they want it, they can search for it and find it and pull it up. So
Exactly. It's available.
okay.
Well, I mean, if we wanted to give some pointers, we could put it on our sign or something. If you're interested, go visit, the website and it's found here or something. I don't know. But I mean, we're not going to print this thing and distribute it. So the website should be sufficient.
All right, let's leave it in there and we'll say we're good.
Well, should we put yellow in there and have make some changes to get direction towards the application? I mean, do we know it's there? We do, kind of.
Well, I'll look it up. I'm pretty sure it is. I think I saw it on there today when I was looking up stuff.
It could use some improvement, maybe.
Oh, I'm sure, but
I'll just type and as I'm listening, and you guys just tell me if you want me to.
I just typed in disaster preparedness plan out of the IOP website, comes right up.
yeah, I got it too. It's definitely there.
It was clearly there, then we're okay.
And emergency preparedness, and yeah, there's a lot. There are a lot of opportunities to review how to handle an emergency or preparedness.
We can take the yellow out.
All right, we'll say we're good there.
Marty, you're pretty good with this.
Hey, don't jinx me.
Lost my job again.
Don't be too good, Marty. You may get stuck.
Well, my computer hasn't crashed or anything, so don't jinx it. All right. Ready to move on to 5.2?
Yes.
Goal 5.2, support the installation of water and sewer services where required for public health.
So on that goal, I don't think that I think water is everywhere that, anywhere you want it. So I was thinking that water really is not it's just, and I guess there was a time before we tied together our water system with the city of Charleston where maybe it was, but I think that we're good on water.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Good point.
Yep.
So if it's a deletion, I'll just mark it red.
Yep.
And if it's an add, I can put it in green or some other color.
And what do you all think? So when I read this plan, I read it to say, put it in places that are low, and the plan even identifies a few neighborhoods and a few key places.
Right.
To me, I think the Planning Commission and the city generally have expanded to a goal of supporting the installation of sewer services everywhere.
Yes.
Yep. I
Is
agree.
that too far of a stretch to say that we've?
Nope.
Nope.
Is that,
So are you suggesting, Douglas, instead of saying where required for public health, say replace that with island-wide?
yes, to support the installation of sewer services where they currently don't exist, or
Right.
to all properties using a septic system. And then while Marty's typing, we can move on to strategy 5.2 about meeting periodically with the Water and Sewer Commission. And this is kind of exactly what we've just really, I feel like kind of entered into for the first time of meeting with them collaboratively to talk about what we need to do to expand it. So I think that's a good strategy, and I think we've just started it. I don't know what color we want to put that. I mean, it's in the last 90 days, it's been green.
Put in
5
green.
days, I would say it was red.
Should we make it a yellow? So it's sort of, it's not, it was a red, but it's kind of moved to yellow recently. Is that?
Orange.
Come on, we only got 3.
Let's go yellow if that's.
Yellow.
And I think that we would know we've been successful once there are no longer any septic systems on the island.
That's a lofty goal.
Too far reaching?
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could say something like the progress of installing or adding customers is good. I don't know how else to say it, but you can't, if you sit here and wait, like I said earlier, if you sit here and wait for the last one to be installed, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
But progress, I think we're progressing. There's design, we're talking zoning, we're talking a lot of other things. It's all part of the process.
All right, so specific wording on that.
How should we say that?
Incremental gains.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Incremental
Significant progress.
or
So wouldn't these would all be notes and updates, right? Wouldn't our measure of success when we are successful, haven't we sewered the entire island? Wouldn't that be?
Is that 522 though? Isn't 521 about the meeting periodically? That's the strategy.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm probably thinking more. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I think number 2 is everybody's hooked up.
Okay, yeah.
521 is that you've got a history of regular meetings with the sewer and the communication is flowing back and forth.
Right, Marty.
In fact, I'd go so far as to say it should be green, 521.
So Rick, you're not saying that it's just turned to green in the last 90 days, therefore, and it was red for years, so we're going to make it yellow. You're saying just go full green?
Yeah,
mm,
let's do green and get on with it.
All right.
Are we talking 521 now?
521.
Yeah, 521 green.
I don't think there's funding needed, so I would say, yes.
Shouldn't 522 be the same though? We're instead at the bottom where it says where public health is benefited. Shouldn't we also take that off and say? So just take the steps to prove it.
At locations.
Not the same thing. Properties that have existing septic.
Yeah, maybe that goes there, and we leave that. We leave the public health statement as the goal, and then the at locations where it doesn't currently exist should be in the strategy.
Yes,
Does that make sense?
that's what I think.
I think that, so, well, I would say the goal is to have it everywhere.
I missed that, Douglas. What?
Yeah, could you repeat that?
I would say that our goal is to have public sewer everywhere, correct?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, and you're saying that the strategy is to just put it where public health needs it now, and eventually it gets everywhere? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
I think we should take the public health benefit part off and make the goal actually to sewer the island.
Yeah,
Make the strategy to sewer the island.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Hey, Marty, can you read goal 5.2 as it's supposed to read? I don't know if I'm missing a couple of words in there or something. The goal, not the strategy with the edits.
With the edits, okay. Support
Yeah.
the installation of sewer services. So I need to take out where, I guess.
Yeah, at locations.
At
Should the there be where and the where be gone?
Yeah, I would take the there and make it a where.
Sewer services where these services currently do not exist. So take out at locations these, right? Or yeah, at locations, correct.
Okay. Support the installation of sewer services where these services currently do not exist.
There, yeah,
Good.
that works. Okay.
All right.
And then back to the strategies. 5.22, we need to take the last part off where public health is benefited and change that to the same idea where it doesn't exist. I mean, you could just stop where to facilitate additional sewer services to facilitate additional sewer services on the island. I guess you could stop there. I don't know what it is.
My apologies, folks, but I have to drop and you're in better hands with Marty anyway.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Take care, Scott.
Scott, before you go, Scott.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Are you, so I'm going to try to set up a special meeting. Are you, and I'll get everybody's input later, but any time, are you traveling or here in the next?
Probably next week, but I can come in and you figure out what's best for the team and I'll make it work.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
You bet.
All right. So you want me to yank this last piece out completely then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So.
And that one, yeah, I think that's good. As long as we're making progress, we're in good shape. Funding is not, that's the big problem with this one. So, and
Right.
Yeah.
Is it worth noting anything about this current pump station discussion?
I think that's probably too down into the weeds for the, but because there are a lot of I think there's too much to put into that one box there in terms of all the moving parts.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of our hip pocket notes and updates, correct?
Yeah.
This isn't anything that we're
Right.
going to put into the plan. It's just,
Correct. And
you just
I
think
mean-
there's too much to note.
yeah, I think so. I think you may say, something to the effect of this goal and this goal has been at the forefront of the Planning Commission's work for the previous 5 years. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Next goal is 5.4. Says there was no 5.3. Let's see.
Yep. That's
That
cool.
is correct. So I think this would become 5.3.
Would agree.
Yes.
So improve recreational opportunities for all island residents. And then feel like that's always something that we strive to improve.
Mhm.
Feel like we the whole department at the city dedicated to recreational opportunities. I do know that also that alternate modes of transportation is kind of always again at a goal, and we're always working to do that.
Yep.
I am unaware of a kind of a global plan to do that. It seems like we kind of piecemeal projects here and there as they come up. So that, to me, that is still a good strategy and probably still something that should be done. Develop an alternate mode, and I might put that in red. I would think.
Yeah.
Well, how about the Carta, the new Carta bus route and stuff?
That's true.
And what about, haven't we done some improvements on the bike paths,
Yeah.
or weren't we working on that,
Well,
Douglas?
I don't think that there's I mean, on this one, it's talking about really a plan. So there have
Oh,
been
okay.
a lot of piecemeal projects, but I don't think there's ever been really a kind of an intermodal transportation plan of any type.
And,
Okay.
and the
The
installing sidewalks, I know we did that on the street towards the rec center, but
Mhm.
can I put a sidewalk in front of my house?
Yeah, we'll put one there, Vince. Increase the traffic even more.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there was the sidewalks by the rec department. There was the bike connection lane at the bottom of the connector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have budgeted money to redo the bike lane on Waterway Boulevard. That's planned to do this fiscal year. Many bike lanes have been added to the sides of Palm since this. So there are a lot of, like I said, kind of piecemeal projects that have happened.
I think that's good.
I wouldn't mention the Carta thing until that becomes a reality.
Right, because they just did a test, but
Yeah, just a test.
Yeah.
This is true, but it's, I mean,
Marty, I don't know that there's any funding.
Oh, there's not any.
Not really assigned. I mean, there's kind of pockets of money to do projects, but I don't
Right.
think the plan is funded in any way.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I gotcha. Now that makes sense. We got to remember we're talking about a plan here, not
right.
one-offs.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Carta thing falls would be under the transportation element anyway, right? Rather than a recreation facility.
Well, it was for recreational. Well, I mean, you could do it at the place. Yes, I guess.
Yeah, I do think that this element is talking about not services but actual facilities.
Right.
Right.
Well, and there's I know there's a focus group now on that swimming pool idea, but I
Yeah,
don't think
that's yeah. That's interesting. You know, I know that was a controversial. This is the element that talks about the rec center, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, parks and recreation. You know, I know that was a hot button issue, but Rick, do you recall? I'm drawing a blank at what happened with the pool discussion.
I think COVID just kind of tabled it.
I remember we talked about us, you know, the planning commission deliberating a bit on it, but there was already a
Citizens Committee.
citizens committee. But I didn't know, it seemed like there was something that, and maybe it's just COVID. So
I think it's
That was-
celebrated.
that, I don't know if the commission wants to get into including that as an idea to be vetted by the community. I mean, I think as far as we could go, it would fit nicely under this goal of improving recreational opportunities. But I think it's too controversial to say do it, but we could certainly say investigate the feasibility with a citizen advisory group.
Yeah, that'll keep you out of trouble.
Yes.
Are you talking about a new strategy?
Yes,
Okay. So maybe at the end here.
yeah.
Okay. We skipped this
Well,
one.
well,
but-
or no, that, or maybe under that,
Yeah, that'll fit.
under 543.
Right, right.
Yeah, maybe maybe it is just in there.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, okay, you've got it. Marty, you're ahead of the,
yeah, he's moving.
all right.
Sorry, it crossed my mind. I didn't want to. But okay, should we go back to 542 then?
Yes.
Okay. Inventory unimproved rights of way extending to the creeks or marsh for possible use as passive recreational sites, not unlike the street ends in the old village of Mount Pleasant along the harbor. Man, that one gets specific, doesn't it?
Wow.
And this is I've always, there are a handful of roads and rights of way that go down to the creek, and they're there, and it's just really, nothing's ever been done. But there's one here at the end of 13th Avenue. It's got a massive set of power lines, but that road goes right to the creek's edge. There's also one at 25th Avenue.
21st, 21st as well.
At 21st Avenue. My sense has been that it's never been a popular, that the people that live adjacent to those rights of way would never feel great about there being a facility drawing people into their kind of quiet sanctuary. So I don't know. I guess we've always tread lightly on the idea, but I've always personally liked it, but it may be just too obtrusive to those neighbors to really progress.
I personally like it as well.
Have we done anything to that end, Douglas? Have we inventoried or done?
No, we do get, what happens inevitably at each of these is people start to use them.
Okay.
Or to kind of launch their kayaks, and probably most frequently it's people coming and going to Goat Island.
Okay.
And it generally, when they get used, it creates a little bit of a stir from the neighbors. But it's things like a boat gets pulled up and it's sitting there. But maybe that's because it's not really improved. Maybe if it was an improved and a proper thing, maybe it wouldn't be objectionable. But
Well, what do you think about ripping the last bit out?
Yeah, we don't need
to,
that.
Yeah, I agree.
Make it less specific. I mean, if somebody sees that, they might be more scared of the idea if it was a little more
I
general.
think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we want to leave that but put it as a red, that basically no actions
Yeah.
Right.
on it?
I would
seems like-
vote to keep it in. Yes.
I would too. And I don't know if other people got a comment from Elizabeth Campson, and she mentioned about adding, and I don't know, she did mention in this area, but also in 5.8.6, something about passive parks and a public dock at the marina.
But is that actually a done deal?
No,
Well,
but it could be a goal.
It could be a goal for sure. Yes.
Yeah, I saw the email. I don't remember the exact verbiage. I read through it once, but
Oh, I've got it sitting right here somewhere.
Yeah, I have
else.
it. She said that,
Right here.
well, just to quote her sentence here, it could fall under one or all of the recreational opportunities, the park elements, the marina element, and or water access element. I would like you to consider a stated goal of providing a passive park and public dock at the marina.
It's pretty close to being done. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been voting on it. I put it in there.
We can put it in as a strategy and
Yep.
or goal.
well, if it's an either or, if a reference was, these sites or the marina. I mean, I feel like it's even used the exact phraseology, passive recreational site. It
Yep.
might be covered under this one. It's covered under this one for those opportunities, and then, as you guys just said, it's already being discussed as a part of the marina improvement. So if it was specific to the marina, I would say it may warrant an additional strategy. But if
Let's
we're good,
let's give it its own strategy.
I think it should be separate
Yep.
because I think that we could identify these 13th, 25th, 21st differently than we may evaluate the marina stuff.
okay, yeah, I was just for clarity of because her comment referenced several things and what I heard is kind of an either or scenario. But so we're saying we're going to hone in on it as a part of the marina.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'd be looking at 5.4. Well, would this be the place for it, or would it go towards the end, I guess, before I do that? Because we've got
I
another
don't
one.
think it matters. You can put it right behind that one. Right behind 5.42.
Yeah.
And then renumber this one.
Yeah,
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, if it's easier to put it at the bottom, I get what you're saying.
yeah.
Well,
It doesn't really make any difference.
it's not hard or easy for me to do either. It's just what is more
Well, it's
Yeah,
a
I
new
think
strategy, so.
I think 543, Marty,
okay.
I do too, but
and then we'll renumber.
All right, so this one's all new. So I will go green here. Okay, somebody help me out with her statement again.
Yeah, so I'll read it again, just from the last part. It says, "I would also like you to consider a stated goal of providing a passive park and public dock at the marina." And that's pretty simple. So we could say something like, as a strategy, continue the exploration of a passive park and public dock at the marina.
yes, that's perfect.
And then this record of Genesis would be what? Is that what we're doing? This is what we're doing, correct?
Yeah,
Aim for them.
It's supposed to be who's charged with implementation.
Oh. Okay.
But-
So that would have been
2020 general government is probably
okay.
yeah, all of these dates will need to be revisited.
So this one would maybe be yellow since it's
Yeah.
something
I would
that's
say
current.
yellow. It's
Yeah.
not done, but it's working on it.
Work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
new park. Yeah.
What of our funding for this?
The planning commission suggested using the tree fund money several months ago. So I don't know that that's really assigned to it. But there's certainly money there. So I guess the technical answer is no, it's not assigned, but you may put in the notes that
Yeah.
planning previously recommended use of tree fund to fund this.
Like it.
Okay. All right. So this one becomes 5.4. Right. Okay. Goal of improve recreational opportunities for all island residents. Strategy, consider additional improvements to the rec center to offer a wider spectrum of leisure activities for preschool children to senior adults. See also strategy 1.1.
So do we want to specifically, I think we've got in a note that there's a swimming pool citizens committee. Do we want to put in that strategy specifically? Just at the end. Consider additional improvements, including the possibility of a pool.
Douglas, couldn't we be more broad and say,
Yeah.
wasn't that like phase 3 of the rec department plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that strategy is probably broad enough as it is now that it covers it. But if we wanted to add some specifics, we certainly could. Maybe we stay out of it. Maybe it's too much of a hot topic.
Well, what I was just suggesting is that instead of specifically naming the pool, the recreation plan, when it was developed, had several phases to it. And we've done phase 1 or phase 2 or whatever we've done. And there was a phase 3 that was actually developed some time ago. Whether that's still appropriate or not, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but I do know that the phase 3 or whatever it was what included the pool. But it also included other things.
They put secret code in the plan that references a phase that we don't know what it is. I would say we just want a pool.
I just don't want people sending me emails about a pool.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we steer clear of the pool.
Yeah.
I think that strategy is broad enough that it would support a pool anyway.
I think it covers it. Yeah, I agree. It's something that we noted here, and it's something that gives us a way to evaluate this strategy, but I don't know that it's worth getting that specific.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm going to highlight these in blue, these cross references, Douglas, just because I know we've changed some others.
Yeah, they'll get changed. That's good.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we good on that one?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Goal of 5.5. And we actually have a 5.6 in a 5.7 and a 5.8. Am I looking at an old version?
No, I think he just sent it to you.
It goes to 5.9.
It goes to 5.9 in the PDF, yeah. So I think we only got to 5.5 on this spreadsheet, but
Oh, okay. We're not, you know what? That's 5.5 will put us past 5 o'clock. And it may be a good spot.
Good, yeah, great point here.
okay. All right, goal of 5.5, improve the appearance of the island. Good goal.
I think that's
Yeah.
hard to argue with that goal.
Yeah, right.
The city strategy 5.5.1. The city should continue to support tree planting programs along streets and develop a long-term plan which prioritizes streets and identifies the types of trees to be used.
Huh.
So the most, kind of germane thing on that point here recently has been the Dominion cutting of street trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would almost say that probably a more meaningful goal would be to work with utilities to ensure the health and beauty of our trees.
Yep.
I don't know that we are actively, there was a time when we did put trees down Palm Boulevard, obviously, at one point. We put trees down Ocean Boulevard at one point. We're talking about beautifying putting trees at the marina with the tree fund. I have not really heard a lot of kind of emphasis placed on additional street trees. But like I said, I do know that there's probably more interest in.
Maybe we
Can
should
we-
call this, maybe we should support tree, instead of supporting tree planting, support tree care.
Well, how about landscape and landscape maintenance and not just trees specifically?
Well, this strategy states continue to support tree planting programs. So I guess that implies that there were programs at the time of this.
Yeah, and there still are a little bit, that as the plant that we call it. So I think those are references to, we had the Plant a Palm program that was Palm Boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
As those
After
trees,
Hugo.
yeah, as those trees died, there was a little bit of money put in the fund every year to replace those trees, to fill in holes. And then the second program was the Isle of Palms, Isle with an A, at Ocean Boulevard. And same thing, you could buy a tree. We replaced trees. We pulled sick trees out. So there are, there's ongoing kind of maintenance programs, but not any widespread planting programs.
All right. So would this have been more appropriately called tree maintenance programs?
Tree care.
Tree
I
care?
like maintenance.
You like maintenance?
I
Yeah.
think, to me, those programs of putting palms, I don't think that they're meaningful enough to warrant being in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I think a bigger community issue is back to the utility. So I think to rework that strategy entirely, to say that the city should, I don't know, continue to support or just support tree care programs, and then maybe specifically mention utility work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a better way to go.
I'm sorry, what was the last bit about the utilities?
Undo that, edit the delete you just did, Marty, if you could, because it is specifically to streets along tree care programs, and develop a long-term plan, maybe with utility companies that prioritizes the health and beauty of the trees. And then I think that existing 551 goes away entirely and gets replaced by that. Everybody's okay with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were saying to replace this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just do this. What did I just do there? Okay.
And I would say that we're in that discussion now, so maybe we're yellow. We kind of got caught a little bit by Dominion. But I think we're now kind of making steps to
So for what was in there before, you said it was these programs were developed previously post Hugo.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know. Maybe that's something that's covered better in the strategic plan in a scenario planning.
Continuation of those, Marty, is what you're referencing?
Yeah, I'm like, well, what do we do if we have another catastrophic storm event? Is it something that's worth keeping in there? But like I said, that may be more applicable to a strategic plan.
Yeah, I think so. I think replacement of existing, I mean, it's kind of mainly. Measure of success would be, yeah, looks like you're working, Marty, but some kind of having a program in place that ensures city street trees remain healthy and beautiful.
So underground power.
Yeah, maybe the way.
That is a strategy later, though.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Strategy 5.5.2. Consider additional ways of reducing litter on the island.
And this is one that we really, again, we kind of beat this one to death in these years with the smoking ban on the beach.
Yep.
And it really highlighted the challenges to me of, the police department basically saying that they have to see somebody flicking a cigarette butt to ticket them. And obviously nobody does it when they're in the presence of an officer. So it is a challenge.
Plus, I think that the new signage at the beach paths and things like that have helped. And the fact that we've got cans everywhere, that's helped. But
Yep.
I don't know much more that you can do.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this I think this is another point that's really at the forefront of council, and they really do kind of focus on what beach sweep, smoking ban. I think the plastic bans, I think I would give us a green in this one.
Yeah.
So just, I guess, policy.
Well, or maybe a measure would be, because we are actually counting,
The tonnage increases.
we're counting pieces of litter and tonnage.
Hmm.
I think we could say measures having a measurable reduction in the amount of litter on the island.
Tonnage.
But we're actually counting the amount of plastic and stuff that we remove. I mean, somebody does that, right? Somebody does that.
They actually segregate it.
Yeah, that's right.
And the beach sweep they do.
Beach sweep and the Santa, beach Santa.
Does that cover it well enough? I mean, you guys
Yep.
are throwing out a lot of stuff. Okay.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
Okay. All
Now,
right.
5.5.3 is a little bit of a mystery to me too.
Yeah.
I didn't understand this one.
Yeah.
So I understand what it's saying. That and I'm guessing that there was a planning commissioner that had on their dock or their neighbor's dock, they put a gazebo or a little roof structure out there that was bothersome. But I think, this is clearly in OCRM's permitting world, and I don't know. I've never heard.
I don't think this is with anything within our purview at all.
Yeah.
And we don't have any say-so in what happens on the end of a dock. Do we?
No. I mean, we could post objections. All of those dock permit requests go out to public comment. That's about all.
Right.
But I have never been aware of the city taking a position on a residential dock like that.
No, this is part of the comprehensive plan. I can't.
Yeah.
Doesn't belong here. It's
No.
not, we have control over, nor can we measure it,
No.
really. Well, I guess the measurement would be 0, but I mean,
Well, that may have. So, Marty, did we get off of numbers? Did this then put us back on numbers? No, that 5.4. Yeah.
Just if we deleted, just if we deleted 5.3.
Okay.
Because the last one was in the previous goal. Is that what you were getting at?
Yeah, it seems like yes, it was actually okay.
Yeah.
That didn't make it.
Yeah.
Encourage new or replacement electrical distribution systems to be constructed underground. This again is something that, not a month goes by that it's not discussed, and I think it's one that it's a worthy strategy. It's hard and expensive to get motion on it, but it's something that we're striving for.
Douglas, can you explain what Elizabeth referenced in her letter, the $800,000 utility tax, and what happens with that?
Well, so there is a, and I think what she's talking about, there is a fee, non-standard service agreement fee is what it's called, that Dominion Energy, they basically have kind of a grant program to fund these type projects, but there is a match, there's a considerable match by the city to do that. So we can apply for money through Dominion for a project like an undergrounding project, and they will pay a percentage of it. And I think it's 50%, but it's some amount that they will pay to offset the expense. But we have to pay the other half. That's we use that program to install the lights on Ocean Boulevard at the front beach area. So it is nice. If you're going to do a project, it makes it more affordable, but certainly doesn't make it cheap.
No.
But, there has been talk about just having a slow, progressive march of utility lines of just, each year doing a small project, $200,000 each year to put a couple more poles under, but we've never done it. And I think that's what she's getting at, to just kind of chip away at the problem, a few poles each year, and start it moving.
Where would the money come from to do that? Just the general operating budget?
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of always the problem is.
And they had, what was it, last year, I guess, had a forum on Sullivan's Island on this, where I guess it was Dominion came in and they discussed it, and because the city had explored the same thing, and it was found that, from a cost standpoint, it's prohibitive, and then from a maintenance and repair standpoint, it's prohibitive. But from a hardened structure during a hurricane, it's a good thing to have. But it's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah.
Because their argument is, okay, so if they're above ground, yes, and during a hurricane, they get destroyed, you wipe out your utility lines, we can come in and string them up in a couple days and be up and running, versus now we got to go underground, we got to pull all this cable from under these tunnels. So I don't know. It's one of those things that probably should be explored all the time, but whether it's feasible or not, or it's, good for the city, I don't know.
The big advantage is the trees.
Yes, I guess the trees. Yep.
But you know what happens? You have to cut the roots in order to put the underground cable in.
Right.
So it's got pluses and minuses.
Yep.
And then all those transformers.
And then the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
But
always,
I have them on my street. I don't have overhead power lines on my street at all.
Yeah, we don't have them here either.
and then none in Wild Dunes, right? None in the city went through a pretty major project of doing the front beach area,
Right.
putting them, we did a project of putting them under at the, right at the intersection of Palm Boulevard where the connector came down. So we've kind of sporadically done it at the most highly visible locations, which to me is kind of the, that would be the way to go. Where the spaces that we use as a community all day, every day, Palm Boulevard,
Right.
Those higher priorities. And we all notice when the trees get cut along Palm, that we kind of prioritize those.
Well, haven't they discussed putting them underground at the marina?
I have not heard them. Yes, they did. Yeah. As
They
part of
did at some point.
Yeah.
referendum.
This one yellow then,
Yeah, I think so.
based on what you just said.
Yeah, I think that's the other. It's kind of a nice to have when if you were to have extra money and as money makes it possible.
All those parking fees.
Okay. 5.5.4 now is seek funding sources to place. Wait a minute. Oh,
I'm-
seek funding sources to, yeah, okay. I got you. It's
I'm
different.
unaware, I mean, maybe there are funding sources, but as Lisa mentioned, Dominion keeps a fairly sizable fund that we can really use anytime. But it only covers that percentage. I think it's 50%. I don't know that anybody else, I don't think there's grants for that type of work that I'm.
No.
Can those two
Nothing from
strategies be
FEMA or-
consolidated?
Yeah, maybe, we probably could make that one strategy.
They seem to go hand in hand.
Yes.
Yeah, one's definitely talking about the work and one's talking about the money, but they seem to be.
I'll just do a second.
Yeah, just
Statement.
take that sentence. Yeah, just push that second sentence up there.
How about this? We'll just keep a record of it here. And then we'll just blow this one away. Does that look right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other new goals or strategies that anyone had top of mind coming into the meeting?
So you're
I
saying,
guess we'll continue this one next meeting, correct?
yes, I think so.
So there's still time to chew on it, but I think that covers what was existing in the plan. So
Yes.
Do we have any time schedule on the flood flood maps. Do we have to do that tonight?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that one, we have to have, council has to have it for 2 months. And they have to have a public hearing. So that one has, and they generally don't do it in December, and it has to be enacted in January. So that one is on a time.
okay.
Are we ready to talk about that one?
Yep.
All right. So, I think, Marty, you probably weren't privy to this, and Scott, who's not here, he also wasn't part of it, but FEMA released new flood maps. And the way this works is they basically study the areas and they create the maps. And then they tell you a date by which you need to have it adopted. Marty, you want me to stop? I can put your,
Oh, you want to take back over? Yeah, sure.
Cute kid, though.
Adorable.
Yeah, really cute kid.
Oh,
were you actually going to the, if you were going to the part of the agenda that had the changes, is that what you're doing?
I was just gonna look for that. Yeah, as you were.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that'd be good then.
Let's see. I've got
So-
the packet here.
I think it was the last 15 pages or so in the packet. So FEMA produces new maps. They give you a date to have them adopted by. These have been pretty highly anticipated. They are greatly reducing the required flood elevation across the entire island. We talked about that as a commission now, probably 2 or 3 years ago. You all will recall that even though FEMA's new maps are putting large chunks of the island out of the floodplain entirely, we as a community opted to adopt a higher minimum standard based on Noel Scott's rusty nail. You all will recall. We had a rusty nail from Hurricane Hugo that was at elevation 13, and the commission wisely said any new construction has to have an elevation of at least 14 feet above sea level. So that was done. That's been settled. So now what's come up is the maps. FEMA has finally given us the date that we have to have them effective by, and that date is January 29th, 2021. So primarily what this ordinance is doing is it's adopting those maps with that do. Another impact of those maps is they include a new flood zone that we've never had, and it's called an AO flood zone. And that is a flood zone where FEMA is predicting you're going to have a bowl effect, and it instead of establishing an elevation requirement above mean sea level, they're just saying you need to be X number of feet off the ground. So they're saying you're in a bowl, your bowl's going to fill up, and your floor should be at least, and out here it's generally 1 or 2 feet off the ground. In practical terms, our universal 15-foot elevation requirement, I think, will always be higher than this AO requirement. But from a technical standpoint, we do need to have a standard in the code that addresses these new AO zones. So that's really what this change is doing. It's adopting the maps, and it's creating standards for these AO zones, which are new to us. And as part of this process, South Carolina DNR reviews every community's floodplain ordinances, and they gave me a list of fairly minor provisions that they are indicating we have to adopt, that FEMA basically pushes down to them minimum standards that has to be in each community's regulations. So there's a couple of those, but they're not very meaningful, if meaningful at all. Really, it's just the new flood maps and the AO zone standards. Any questions on that? Without any questions, anybody have a recommendation for approval to council?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve these, or that we recommend to council that they be approved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
All right, last things. We do, so the drainage planning. Council is in the midst of getting together the bond to fund the large scale projects. That's in the works and happening kind of as we speak. On the smaller scale projects, those Thomas and Hutton has put that request for bids out. We had a mandatory pre-bid meeting last week with a lot of interested bidders. So we will be getting bids back soon for that work. So that should happen. We expect that work would actually begin just after the new year. So probably January, middle of January, that work would begin. We also, as you will recall, had Thomas and Hutton analyze the waterway path with the idea that the path needs to be elevated. We're also creating these tide gates that are protecting up to a certain elevation, and they are looking at the feasibility of elevating that path a bit, or establishing a height to elevate that path to keep high tide and storming events from cresting over into Waterway, over Waterway Boulevard and back into that community.
Yeah.
So that's underway. They're kind of just starting on that, and they're pulling together data to establish the ideal height of that path and pulling together budgets in terms of how much that project will cost. So we're working forward on that. And that's it for drainage. Any questions on drainage work?
one thing, I was walking the dogs the other day and there were people on down around 31st chatting.
Yeah.
They were talking about, evidently a surveyor had been by there, or somebody, an engineer from the engineering company had been by and just made a comment that they were going to be putting or digging up the ditch at some point in time.
Yep.
And I guess, should we think about maybe putting a little note together about what we're going to be doing so that people understand? Or
Yeah, and we do, anytime people are going to be working in an easement, and actually at 30th, we've been meeting with the adjacent owners.
Oh, you have?
Yes. And corresponding via email about that one,
Oh.
because that one is a little bit more dramatic.
Yeah, close to home.
Yeah, that, and that one, they are also still working out exactly what's going to happen there. That's the one that crosses the fairway. So Wild
Right.
Dunes has an interest
Right.
in how we're handling that one. So that one's a little bit, that's kind of the trickiest part right now, is right in that area specifically because it goes across the golf course. But we send a letter to anybody anytime we're in those easements adjacent to them, and we certainly will before any equipment shows up or anything like that. So,
Okay.
the MOU with the Water and Sewer Commission, Bill's favorite. We're on maybe year 5 on this. But as you will recall, they have looked at it. You all have looked at it. And at this point, it went through Public Works Committee. They have recommended that full council execute the MOUs, and that will be on council's agenda for final action at the end of this month.
Oh, real good.
It should be put
Perfect.
to rest quick enough.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
I do. Some clarifications, things that have come up in my world in the last month from our zoning ordinance perspective. The first is non-conforming lots and setbacks thereof. When we double the size of all the minimum properties in the zoning ordinances, like from SR1 from 17,500 to 35,000 square feet, we made the comment you'd be making all the lots non-conforming. So we corrected that by adjusting setbacks so that they would remain as they are today. One of the things that has happened on a project I'm working on is the lot is non-compliant, not because of its size, but because of its width. And it is at a disadvantage. But we no longer have the front yard setback adjustment because we took those away. And the only way you could get that is, well, it's baseline zoning. And I don't know if that was an intention of the commission, maybe something to consider. If a lot is non-conforming due to something other than its square footage, that the old front yard setback provisions might be allowed. Something that I think about and talk about if there is a concern. There's probably only a handful of properties on the island that could affect, but I think it was an unintended consequence. And the other one is just about fill on lots, and I've got some confusion as to how that is being interpreted. And maybe just Douglas and I can talk about that. I've got a lot I'm not involved with. Drew the house plans years ago. This guy's trying to resubmit now for plans. The lot slopes from the back to the street from 13 feet to 9 feet. The street's about 8 feet. And I guess he's having some issues, and I'm getting all this secondhand about his fill being more than a foot higher than the street, which I don't quite understand. But is that an unintended consequence of our ordinance, something that we need to take a peek at or not? Because I don't think we should be requiring somebody to remove dirt from their lot, or if they're even just
the way that ordinance is written and the way we have interpreted it, we established a maximum new elevation of 1 foot above the road.
Right.
But if you're already more than a foot above the road, we allow you to stay at that. You can stay at that elevation.
Right.
But some folks, they're already 2 or 3 feet above the road,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, well, I want to bring up the rest of my lot to 2 or 3 feet above the road.
Right.
And we haven't allowed them to do that. And to me, I can't think of, if you're already that far above the road, I can't see why we would want to keep somebody who's low at their elevation, but then allow this guy to go some amount higher.
Right. Yeah, well, he's getting it re-engineered. So anyhow, maybe I'll understand after I see that plan what he's complaining about, and he might just be trying to get out of buying a piece of property. I don't really understand. But I just wanted to make sure that we're not asking people to take dirt away or something like that. Maybe
we only regulate newly elevated terrain. So if you're already above the foot, we allow you to keep that, maintain it, improve it, but we're not going to allow you to go up additionally beyond that.
Right. What about cutting and filling and stuff like that? This is just hypothetical. So if you have like dirt in one area that you want to spread out along the property,
we don't allow that. If you already have an area that's that's above the foot limit, we have not allowed people to go any higher than they already are.
So let's say most of the yard is a foot over and you have like a natural divot. Are you allowed to fill the divot? I mean, that's a weird presumption, and that's,
No.
you know,
Yeah, I don't, no, we haven't. And in fact, we have had, and maybe this is what he's getting at. Maybe he has that condition. We have had people excavate out, basically create little ditches, little swale ditches to let the water get out of, kind of trapped high area. But
mhm,
no, we would not, and you can imagine the abuse that it would get if
sure,
we started allowing people with already high lots to then say, oh, well, I've got a depression within my very high lot, so I need to go up further.
right,
So
right.
we would-
Certainly
we
not,
would
we
be
don't need to do
faced
that.
with either leveling down to the depth of the divot, or just allowing some release from that divot. But we
Sure.
wouldn't, and I don't think it would be fair to those that were holding their feet to the fire on not allowing them to elevate, to allow somebody who's well above what the code
Sure.
allows to elevate additionally.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't want to open a can of worms on this, but I have a thought on the subject just because of some stuff that I've seen. But I think if there were an opportunity, I would say there can be other impacts to filling even 1 foot other than what affects the road or the city's right of way or drainage, because a person could fill a foot and effectively impact their neighbors, the existing drainage pattern in their neighbor's lot, creating sort of a dam situation, if you will.
Mhm.
Well, so Marty, that the 1 foot limit is part of it, but the other part of it is it has to have a stormwater professional certify that filling in accordance with that plan is not going to adversely impact the neighbor. Now, we've had situations where an engineer is certified that if you do this, it's not going to adversely impact your neighbor. And we've had people follow the plan exactly, but then the neighbor says, I understand that they followed the rule and they followed the foot, and the engineer is saying that it's not going to adversely impact me, but I'm telling you that it is impacting me, and isn't there
Right.
something we can do? So there is kind of a limit to what we can do. And we do hit that where people say, and the engineer in these situations will come back. He'll look at it. He'll verify it's done according to the plan. That fill that got you up a foot is not adversely impacting the neighbor, but the neighbor doesn't, they just don't see eye to eye on the point. And at that point, from the city standpoint, we say we're satisfied, you've done what you can do, but sometimes you can't get it fully resolved. And that has happened now at least twice, if not 3 times.
Right. Yeah, just something I've noticed and something to think about.
Okay, guys,
All right, 5:29. Are we ready to adjourn?
we're ready to adjourn. I'll make a
I'll
motion.
Somebody left the office.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're done.
All right.
Thank you.
Good meeting. Good meeting.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.